welcome to Civil Cafe, Honolulu Civil Beat's monthly live series where we talk about, the most important issues of the day, things that matter to you the most as a community. I'll tell you a little bit about Civil Beat first. My name is Gene Park. I'm the community manager for Civil Beat. Civil Beat is a daily investigative news website. We are subscriber supported. We do a lot of investigative work, deep dive journalism into how government works and everything. We can only do what we do if through our subscribers. So if you can stop by civilbeat.com, that'd be great. Now we have an actual special. We have a special one today. Session's over and the political season is well underway, and so we'd like to welcome a very special guest, State Senator David Ige, and interviewing him will be Chad Blair, our senior reporter. And,
thanks, Gene.
Yeah. Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
It's Chad's birthday. Wish him happy birthday, guys. There you go. We will be opening up for questions later, so if you can form an orderly queue once we start getting to that point, that'd be great. We'll just be right here. You can follow us at home at #CivilCafe. For everyone watching, we'd like to thank Olelo, our partner in putting it together, and just let it roll.
Well, thanks, Gene, for that introduction. And it's not quite my birthday. It's actually coming up very quickly. But thanks for the plug anyway. Senator, you survived session. Congratulations.
Absolutely. I did want to thank Civil Beat for this opportunity to be here and to be in the homes across the state. And I also wanted to congratulate Civil Beat on their 4th birthday. I know it's coming up this month. I have to say that Civil Beat has changed the news and the reporting in our community. And I did want to congratulate Civil Beat for celebrating the 4th anniversary this month. It has been a sea change in our community, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. I'm hoping everybody at the Hawaii Legislature is subscribing to Civil Beat. Maybe you can help us with that. This interview will be conducted in 3 parts. I'm going to talk about the Senator's background, talk about the issues in his platform, and then finally finish up with the campaign ahead. But to begin, we're going to give the Senator a chance to make an opening statement about why he's running for governor. So tell us, Senator, why are you running for governor of Hawaii?
Thank you very much. I born in Honolulu, raised in Pearl City. I decided to run for governor this year because this election really is about the future of Hawaii. I've served for 29 years and I've seen lots of changes. And over the last 4 years, I've seen many things that I disagree with. I believe that Hawaii is headed in the wrong direction. I believe that I have the experience, both the business experience and the legislative experience, to make a difference in our community. I have 3 children. In all of my public service, I've really tried to make and leave Hawaii a better place. This year, I really believed was the year to say enough is enough. I'm going to be running for governor. I'm going to be the next governor because this election is about the future of Hawaii.
Well, I may as well get into this right now because you brought it up. You mentioned the last 4 years. That's Governor Abercrombie's 1st term. He's running for a 2nd term. You've had some disagreements, many you said. Can you identify 1 or 2 that particularly irk you, something that the governor has done wrong or has not done during his tenure?
Well, I think that there are lots of differences between myself and the governor. It is pretty black and white from my perspective. For example, I've rejected many tax increases. The governor has proposed to tax pensions. He's proposed to take away retirees' Medicare Part B reimbursements. He's proposed to tax sugars. He's proposed to tax bags. And I'm one that believes the state needs to live within its means. It really is about what's sustainable from our community perspective. We've come through a very, very tough economic time for our community, and it really was about tightening our belts, trying to understand what makes our community work, and then making the best decisions on behalf of our communities.
Taxing pensions, taxing other things, this is a way to generate revenue for the state, as you know, and as chair of the Ways and Means Committee, you and Sylvia Luke on the House side are challenged every single year trying to balance those books. It's a tight budget. What's wrong with a little more extra revenue coming in with some of those ideas that the governor has proposed?
Well, you know, as I've traveled across the state, I've heard from many people about the fact that they believe that we're not getting good value for our tax dollar today. They are very much concerned that government has stopped listening. They believe that government has been unresponsive. And you know, I've always believed in been one to believe in, you know, that we really, part of our job is really making government work for the people. And really, that's job one for the governor. You know, to be aware of what is working in our community, be aware of what things are priorities and should be funded, be aware of things that shouldn't be. You know, and that's something that I believe, and that's one of the reasons I'm running.
Let me ask you just one more question about the governor, and we're going to come back to him later
Sure.
during the interview. But you've been down on the 2nd floor, he's up on the 5th floor. If you're able to beat him on August the 9th, and then get past Mufi Hanneman and Duke Iona, you'll be up on the 5th floor. What about the governor's style? Has he demonstrated leadership in any way, or has he sometimes had, if you will, sharp elbows with the legislature?
You know, I do believe that leadership style is a very important issue this election. And I've heard across the state that people of Hawaii want a change in leadership style. I do bring a different perspective to the office. I believe in consensus building. I believe in listening to our communities and listening to all stakeholders. I believe in allowing people to participate and taking the best ideas. And I think most importantly, it really is about making the best decision we can so we can move our communities forward.
The governor was in the House and Senate, in Congress as well, the City Council. Does he not recognize that you have to be able to compromise and reach out now that he's governor?
Well, all I can say is I think the record speaks for itself. You know, he has made many proposals to the legislature. I'm not sure how many have actually passed. You know, it really is about, I do know.
Keep going, Sarah.
I have been in office for 29 years. I really do understand how difficult it is to get legislation passed. And it's not as simple as making a proposal and hoping that it passes. It really is about working with all stakeholders. It's really about working with the legislature. It's really finding consensus so that we can move forward and get things done.
Okay. Tell me, why did you decide to run? Did people encourage you? I know you have George Ariyoshi and Ben Cayetano, former governors, backing you. There's talk that you were approached by labor groups who have been disappointed with the governor. Did someone have to come and convince you, or was this your own idea?
No, absolutely. You know, there's been many rumors around why I'm running, and you know, there's some sinister plot. There is no sinister plot. It was a personal decision. You know, every year that I've served, every term that I've served at the Capitol, you know, I take it one term at a time. I'm an electrical engineer by profession. I've maintained my career for all of the time of my public service. I've always believed that that's important. You know, to have a professional life outside of public service, I believe was very important. In the last several terms, as we've come up, I've served now for 29 years. The conversation has been about, is there a bigger role? Is there more that I can offer the public in terms of a broader reach to what I can do? And I think as I served in the legislature, I've come to understand how important the executive is in actually seeing good things happen on behalf of the state. You know, I believe I passed lots of good legislation. I put into place lots of good policy, and then I've seen it fall flat. You know, it is about executing. It's about the whole pie. You know, that legislating is a half the battle. Executing is just as important as legislating.
You know, you mentioned your background in electrical engineering, and then of course you have a background, I believe, also related to that in information technology, things that you worked on. These are not exactly the kinds of skill sets someone normally brings to not only being a legislator, but being the governor. How might that actually help you on the job, an engineering background and IT focus?
You know, it's a couple things. You know, a lot of what state government do is about data, is about information. You know, I do see lots of opportunities for how state government may be more efficient if we apply the right tools and technology to be able to deliver better services at reduced costs. So I see that as a prime opportunity for getting our state to be more efficient as we move forward. As an engineer, our training really is about trying to understand issues, look at all the alternatives, and then make the best decision to ensure success. And my MBA is actually in decision sciences, and it really is about trying to take different mechanisms, trying to do better cost-benefit analysis. And I think that I've been preparing for 35 years for this run for governor, because all of those skills, I think, as an engineer that I apply every day in my job as an engineer is directly related to solving problems, looking at alternatives, finding solutions in the job of the governor.
Can a governor with an engineering background and IT background also inspire people? Because you're leading the state, 1.4 million people, you're the person who sets out the vision. Is that something that you can also give to the people of Hawaii?
All I can tell you, Chad, is as I've campaigned across the state, I've been on the Big Island, I've been on every island except for Niihau. Every community meeting that I have, every stew and rice dinner that we've had, I get feedback from the community that they like what I have to say, they are committed, they want to see change. After they leave the events, they are motivated to join the campaign and support.
Okay. Two things struck me about your biography as I was reading it over on your website. One, that you were a tennis athlete. It didn't strike me that you would be a tennis player. Mike Gabbard's a tennis player.
Yes.
Is that something that you still do?
Well, I haven't gotten into, and I wish I could play more. It's an interesting story. For those of you, I was raised in Pro City, and for those of you who know Pro City, Little League Baseball, Pro City is the Little League Baseball capital of the world. But, when I went to Pro City High School, I went out for the baseball team. It didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out. There were 60 people who was trying out for the baseball team. I knew that I wouldn't be one of the top 45 kids to make the cut. And there was nobody trying out for the tennis team. So, all right? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out I'm going out for the tennis team. And, and let me just, long story short, that first year on the tennis team, I think we were all freshmen and sophomores. Our record for that year was 4 wins and 41 losses. But by my senior year, as captain of the tennis team, we turned that around so that our record going into my senior year was 44 wins, 6 losses, and we took the championship for the division. So
congratulations!
That's a great thing.
One other thing about your background that caught me by surprise. I'm the oldest of 4, and if I understood correctly, if I read it correctly, you are the 5th of 6 boys. Is that correct?
That's correct. I am the 5th of 6 boys.
I'm guessing you got pushed around a great deal when you were a kid. Did that build you a sort of a thicker skin and find that you had to exert yourself more?
No, we were a hardworking middle-class family. My father was a steel worker. He got a lot of work in the boom of Hawaii right after statehood. He worked on lots of the major projects that shaped Hawaii. My mom worked as a dental hygienist. So both parents worked. We lived in a 3-bedroom house in Pearl City. We grew up on top of each other. There were 3 boys in each bedroom. There were 2 bunk beds. It was a challenge, but it was fun. And it was a great time growing up in Pearl City. Pearl City used to be country. When I started living there, there were no freeways. It would take 45 minutes to an hour. So the conspiracy theorists would say that this is a plot, but I'm not going to believe that. But it was a great time for being in that community, and you learn a lot of skills growing up with 2 working parents. 6 boys in the family. I've done laundry since I was in the 3rd grade. I've cooked meals. I've rode my bicycle around Pro City to get from baseball practice to get home in time to study. And it was a good time growing up.
One other question about your background. Correct me if I'm wrong, but your father served in the 442nd and the 100th during World War II. We're now 4 generations, in many ways, the Japanese-American experience in Hawaii. Senator Inouye passed away. Is it still important to tell that story about what happened to Japanese Americans in Hawaii and on the mainland during World War II, or is it something that's almost distant history, and it seems still important to you for many reasons?
I think absolutely it's important. My father was of that generation. He did volunteer for the 100th, 442nd. He never talked about his service growing up. But as I've learned more about the 100th and the exploits of the 442, it definitely is a story that cannot be forgotten. I mean, remember, his generation and his colleagues volunteered for service at a time when the country labeled them as enemy alien. They went to war because they believed that it was important to prove their loyalty to their country at a time when they were being disavowed. And I think more importantly, I learned to appreciate what that effort was as I've learned about the exploits. My father earned a Purple Heart, a Bronze Star. He never really talked about his exploits. I found out more about his service than he would ever talk about. And the remarkable thing is growing up and going to, we were very active in Club 100. We went to the Christmas parties, we went to the picnics, the summer picnics and all of that. I never really understood what Club 100 was. I didn't realize that it was a veterans group associated with the war. They never talked about that. It really was about the working together, about building community, about building the community of veterans. I mean, that's what they were about. And my father's best friend ended up being a Silver Star and got upgraded to a Medal of Honor winner. For my entire life, I never realized that his exploits was about such valor in Europe. And and that's their generation. It really wasn't about them. It really wasn't about their exploits. It really was about making our community better.
Okay.
Right?
No, I can tell that it touches you very much, and I appreciate you sharing that. Let's get to the issues and the platform that's important to you. We got to start with the public school system. The Department of Education, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the single greatest expenditure, is it not, in terms of dollars for the state?
Yes, it is.
Problems with air conditioning in the schools, something that, well, there was some progress made in that regard. We'll just share the microphone. It's probably the best thing to do. Or if you can give him one to hold, that'd be great. That's Mike Webb, by the way, everybody. A round of applause for Mike Webb.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and turn that thing on and see if it's working. There we go.
Test.
Oh boy, a little echo.
I guess this just goes to show that this is live, unrehearsed, across the state.
So problems with air conditioning in the schools. Test scores are still not quite where they should be. There's now a bit of a revolt in terms of the evaluations of the teachers. You're a graduate of the Department of Education. What are you going to do? This is one of the biggest gripes that we have year after year, decade after decade, the poor state of our public schools. Improving, but still troubled.
A couple of things that I would just want to say about that. I am a graduate of public schools, Pearl City High School, and proud of it. I have spent a lot of my legislative time working on the public school system. I really do believe that the public schools provide the foundation of our communities. I think they do a great job in many areas. I think that there are many challenges. I wrote the first comprehensive restructuring of the public school system more than 20 years ago, and it's amazing to me that the issues that come up are still the same. It really is about empowerment. It's about trusting those closest to the children to make the best decisions on behalf of the system. It really is about empowering principals and teachers to make the decisions. We legislated that more than 20 years ago. Act 51, 10 years ago, repeated the same issues again 10 years ago. Fast forward 10, and you've seen the surveys in the paper, we've gone backwards. Under this administration, the system has become more centralized, and the principals seem less empowered than ever in the last 5 years. I think that that's what it's about. What can the governor do? I believe it's about execution. I do believe that the laws and the policies that we have on the books today provide all the guidance we need. We need to get a better board, a board that's committed to empowerment of schools. We need to stop the top-down bureaucracy that is really smothering our schools. If you ask the question today about the teacher and the student in the classroom, are they better off than they were 4 years ago? I think the answer you get back is absolutely not. The last 4 years, we've spent so much time and resources and energy on those things that are least important. And we haven't paid attention on those things that are most important. And it really is about the interaction between the teacher and the student.
Now, the governor, it wasn't his decision to switch from an elected board to an appointed board, although I believe he supported that. You have well-respected people in the community, although controversial to some, like Don Horner. Many people think that the board is pretty good. Is the governor really the one to blame for the last 4 years? Catherine Matayoshi, generally well-respected in her position as a superintendent.
Let me just say this. If you look across the country at the states that have made significant advance in public education and school reform, those that have active governors providing leadership have made tremendous gains more than any other. It is about leadership. It's about leadership from the governor's office. It's about those people that he appoints to the Board of Education. You know, you could say collectively, and I've supported all of them in their appointments, it really is about a certain philosophy and what they believe to be the things that need to change to make our public school system better. And I do believe it's about empowerment. And most importantly, it's about walking the talk. The board talks great about empowering schools. We've seen in the survey that's absolutely opposite of what's actually happening on the front lines. It's about understanding that the school is the most important function in state government, in the public school system, and making sure that the entire bureaucracy is really supporting what's happening at the schools.
The Senate is the body that actually approves the governor's appointments.
Absolutely.
Are you regretting some of your votes for some of those board members? Are there board members, if you get to be governor, would you like to remove?
You know, I understand what the appointment process is, and I do believe, you know, the appointment and confirmation process is designed to provide some continuity. So I'm not looking at wholesaling, trying to kick everybody out. But it really is about providing leadership and direction. I would look for board members that are committed to the public schools, that have children or have demonstrated an understanding of what happens there. You know, I'm a parent. I've had 3 children that have been in the public school system. I've gone to PTA meetings. I've gone to SCC meetings. I've worked in the cafeterias on fundraisers for our children. You know, I understand what happens there. I was a student in the public school system. I benefited from many, many dedicated teachers who've helped me be a better citizen. So I think I have a great understanding of what's needed and what's happening in our public school system. And unfortunately, you know, I think the thing that is disheartening to me as I go around and I talk with people across the state is that so much energy is being expended in the system in those areas that really don't make a difference for improving student learning and improving student performance.
We could probably talk about the DOE all night. Let me bring up one other issue regarding public schools, and then I want to shift to higher education.
Sure.
Because you're a graduate from the University of Hawaii, as am I. Charter schools, you were involved in the legislature and helped to create that system. There was several measures this past session to help the charter schools, if you will, sort of restructure the way they receive money, and to help, because as you know well, with your colleague Jill Tokuda and Roy Takumi over on the House side, there are some problems. There are reports of some charter schools and little portables, or even meeting under trees in some cases, let alone having a vacation problem, or rather an air conditioning problem. What about the charter schools? Do they need to be more autonomous? Can the legislature give them a little bit more freedom in terms of how they budget?
You know, charter schools, I did write the first charter school law, and I really do believe in the mission of charter schools. It really was about, from the legislative perspective, giving the school and those closest to the children the ultimate waiver of all laws and rules, and really giving them a broader flexibility to create an opportunity to be focused on a philosophy that they believed would make the biggest difference on behalf of students. And you know, charter schools are public schools. We have some that are performing very well. We have some that are struggling. You know, we have had audits by the auditor that showed some accountability issues. So like public schools in general, we have charter schools that run the whole gamut. The biggest challenge, I think, with charter schools under the current law, and it was a challenge when we passed the first charter school law, was the whole notion of facilities and how should facilities be funded. You know, in a public school where we do know that we're building communities and subdivisions, and we know we need to build a school there. A charter school is a school by choice. That's the definition that we've given them. So they don't have a monopoly, they don't have a service area, and it's very difficult to budget for that. So I mean, I think I want to applaud the effort that Senator Tokuda has made in trying to wrestle with that issue. I guess, you know, a charter school can be anywhere from 30 students to 500 students, and it can grow very quickly. How do you get that into the budget cycle of the legislature so we can make the commitment of facilities funds? A charter school, by the same token, could disappear after 5 years, you know, if it's not. If we make a commitment of millions of dollars on a facility and the charter school goes away, what do we do with the abandoned facility? So it's a very difficult challenge. I don't have all the solutions in that area. I do know that and committed to work with the legislature to find a more stable funding stream for the facilities of charter schools, because they are public schools. I do believe that they deserve support in the facilities area. Like I said, the challenge is we don't know exactly how long they'll be there, but I do believe if a charter school survives for 5 years and gets reconstituted or extended, then for certain we should support those facilities like we do any other public school.
Okay, I'm going to hopefully free you up from that microphone. Let's see if it's going to work now. If we put it back in the stand. All right, gods of technology, help us out. Let's shift to the University of Hawaii. You know, I'm going to start off this question, and I was thinking about as we went through it, how do I bring up UH? And I'll just ask you it this way. Are you proud to be a UH graduate?
I am definitely proud to be a UH graduate. You know, I actually have run the whole gamut of the University of Hawaii system. I started at Leeward Community College as a high school senior in the early admit program. So I enjoyed my time at Leeward. It was great to be on the campus as a senior in high school. I then enrolled at the University of Hawaii and got my bachelor's of engineering at the University of Hawaii. You know, at the time that I graduated, it was heavily recruited. So it was very clear, if you assume that the fact that companies wanted to hire engineering graduates from the University of Hawaii, clearly the program is successful and does very well. I then, during my time working at Hawaiian Telephone, I did enroll in the Master's of Business Administration program, and so I do have an MBA from the College of Business in Decision Sciences. So I do have a graduate degree and have been a participant as part of that program as well.
Well,
so I am definitely proud of the fact that I'm a University of Hawaii graduate.
Well, even though you didn't get the UHPA endorsement, I'm sure they will be happy to hear that. But you know the problems. There's a repair and maintenance backlog that I believe is about $500 million. Manoa, right there at the top, having all sorts of problems. The search for the university president, the tenure of Marcy Greenwood was very controversial, sort of an ugly battle in which your colleagues in the Senate were directly involved. There has been a lot of concern that UH's reputation is declining, that we are not as great an institution as we could be, the single largest, most important institution of higher learning in the state of Hawaii. What are you going to do to bring that reputation back and help with the facilities that need all this work?
You know, we did, you know, it's always a challenge, I think, from the legislative perspective, and it is a challenge from the governor's perspective about what the relationship should be with the university. You know, as when I chaired the Committee on Higher Education, and we tried to legislate different activities, we would always get chastised by the accreditation organizations that the legislature shouldn't be directing, the legislature shouldn't be involved. So, you know, it's a delicate balance about what should the role of the legislature be, what should the role of the governor should be in the University of Hawaii. But let me just say, I do believe that the University of Hawaii is one of the most important institutions in our community. And it is for a lot of reasons. You know, it produces the most teachers that fuel our public schools. You know, it provides the impetus for innovation in our community for the next generation of businesses. You know, it provides the nurses that will hopefully take care of our elderly so that we can age in a way that is consistent with our beliefs and our cultural. So it's significant. It's a very important institution in our community.
Has the legislature been too critical in its oversight of the legislature? The term micromanaging has been brought up. Donna Kim on the Senate side, Isaac Choi on the House side. The governor, as you well know, is a graduate of UH, cites his experience there as being formative there. Should the legislature back off a little bit and let the University of Hawaii run itself?
I think it's a couple things, and you know, I've been very involved with providing the university more flexibility. So when I was chair in the House, we did enact a whole bunch of series of legislation that gave them more fiscal autonomy. They had flexibility. They got released from the allotment process. A lot of nuts and bolts that allows them to be more accountable for the spending. You know, I think, and as I look at the progress of the university, I think that in the last 2 years, the Senate has been very aggressive in reminding. So what we did is we delegated to the regents a lot more responsibility that used to rest with the legislature. We went from line item budget, so we would review every single request to give them lump sum budgeting. We delegated to the regents the ability to hire the university president and the rest of the executive management team. We delegated to the regents the ability to set salaries so it could be competitive so that they could get quality people. And then we let them run with it for about 10 years. I'm convinced at this point, and we have over the last couple of years reminded the regents that delegation to the regents was a responsibility that went beyond the typical regent. They became the representatives of the people. And it became their job to make sure that the dollars were spent appropriately, that we did the best that we could to hire the best personnel that we could find, and set appropriate salaries and set fiscal priorities. And I've been disappointed in the performance of the regents, but I would say this, in the last 2 years, we've made it clear, and I think the regents have heard loud and clear, that they have a broader responsibility than just rubber stamping what the president and the executive team at the university is asking for. And I think that they have been asking harder questions. And let me just get back to one thing you talked about, the maintenance backlog.
Thank you.
You know, 2 years ago, from Ways and Means Committee, I requested and put a budget proviso asking the university to address the backlog of maintenance throughout the system. And you know, let's just be clear that the backlog really is at the Manoa campus. Most of the other campuses have done a decent job of keeping the facilities in good shape. I think 85% of the backlog is really at Manoa. So the Senate insisted that they put together a plan to deal with the maintenance backlogs. So the report that the university came back, the executive team came back to the legislature on the first time we asked was, give us $500 million in GO bonds and we'll take care of the problem. Obviously, that's not a solution that is tenable, especially when that's the entire CIP budget, probably for a couple years. So they did come back, so we went back and said, please, that's the wrong answer. And for the first time, they did take the question more seriously the second time. Obviously, we had a whole bunch of budget provisos that directed them to take it more seriously. And they did come back, at least with a better plan this session. They talked about committing tuition. And you know, that's kind of a double-edged sword about using student tuition to pay for a part of it. But I don't think there's a more direct benefit for tuition if the facilities were in better shape.
2 more questions about UH, then we got to move on to some other issues here. We're about halfway through our talk.
Okay.
Frank Warchinski, I hope I pronounced it correctly, and David Lassner, the 2 finalists for the UH presidency. Are you satisfied with those picks? Is that the best that we could have done?
I'm disappointed in the fact that we only have 2 candidates. And I don't know both gentlemen. I do know David Lassner, and I've known him for a long time. You know, the university president is such an important position. We ought to be very smart about going about it. I believe they should have used an executive search company that focused on university presidents. You know, it's hard to hire a president. They don't grow on trees. It's hard to find candidates. And for something like the University of Hawaii, Hawaii is the most geographically isolated community on the planet. The challenges, the opportunities of the University of Hawaii is different than any other university across the country. From Mauna Kea to the ocean, all of those opportunities for research, for development, for learning is so different than any other institution across the country. I'm just disappointed that the result that we have after about a year's time in the search is that we end up with two candidates that, I just believe we can do better. We ought to rethink about it. I think the community of Hawaii deserves to have a better choice in the options that they have for the next president of the university.
Okay, last question about UH. There's a bill that your legislature passed requiring Board of Regents to make public their financial disclosures. Right now that information is kept private with, I believe, the Ethics Commission. That bill is on the governor's desk. Should he sign that bill into law?
I voted to support it. I do believe that as a public institution, it's important. We've delegated a lot of authority to the regents. They are making decisions about contracts. They are making a lot of decisions that I think the legislature used to make. And the legislature is required to provide public disclosure of information. I think regents should do the same.
Okay. Some of them are saying they're going to quit if that happens.
Well, you know what? That just means we need to broaden the search and find different regents. I mean, you know what? I respect anyone's right to privacy, and if people really believe that they don't want to share that information, I think that they're entitled to. But then they shouldn't be entitled to sit as regents,
There's so much more we could talk about in terms of issues and platform, but I do want to get ahead to the campaign and some of the issues between you and the governor. But let me bring up perhaps the most pressing problem the state faces, the retirement benefits and health benefits for the unions here. And under your tenure at WAM and with the House's support and others, there has been some progress made towards trying to pay down those unfunded liabilities. But realistically, are we putting aside enough money for that? Do we need to actually look at what some other states are doing, which is actually cut back on those benefits for these workers that we've made these promises to? Is that something that we might actually have to entertain because of the sheer size of the liability?
I have made a priority of putting first things first, and I do believe that the accrued benefits of public employees across the state should be paid before we look at expanding government. And the budget that we've passed the last 4 years have committed to that. I'm proud of the work that we've done in restructuring the pension system. We have done all of the things that most financial analysts have said is required to make our pension system sustainable. We've reduced benefits for new employees. We've increased the retirement age so that people have to work longer before they can retire. We've required the employee to pay a bigger portion of their retirement benefit. Newly hired employees for state or county government are going to have to pay a bigger share of that pension. And fourth, we've set a moratorium on legislative enhancements. We said no more the legislature trying to curry favor by providing enhanced benefits. No enhanced benefits until the unfunded liability is fully funded. And the fifth thing, we've made the employer responsible for pension spiking. Employees trying to game the system, work double overtime, trying to get an enhanced retirement benefit. We're going to make the employer pay for that enhanced benefit to keep the pension system whole. So I feel very comfortable that our pension system is on the right track. I've met with the actuaries that support the pension system. I've heard their reports. Although the percent of the pension system has grown a little bit over the last 3 years, they are very confident that the changes that we put in place will provide a sustainable pension system on a going forward basis.
A quick question from Twitter. Thank you, Gene Park. Homelessness, we're talking about it all the time. It's been in the newspapers and TV and Civil Beat a lot lately. How on earth do we address homelessness? What would you do as governor?
You know, homelessness, I think, is something that will be in our community. It will take a sustained effort. You know, I believe we need to work with the state and the county and the private sector really working together to tackle this challenge. You know, I run on the bike path in Pearl City, between Pearl City and Aiea, you know, and at first, homelessness was something that was someplace else in our community. Well, homelessness is in each and every one of our communities. You know, as I run along the jogging path in Pearl Harbor, I see them. They're at Blaisdell Park. They're up in the shrubs, in the bridges along the way. They are in each and every one of our communities. We need to get committed as a community to take that challenge. You know, we've appropriated funds to support the Housing First program. You know, that seems like it has a good track record. But we also need to provide those wraparound services. We need to triage the homeless and identify those that really are homeless because they choose not to be. We do have working homeless that can, because of circumstances, it could be they lost a job, it could be their hours have been cut, it could be that they just can't make that payment and are homeless because of the circumstances. You know, those are the homeless that we should be focusing on because they give us the best opportunity to reduce that number. And then it's providing housing first, providing those wraparound services, mental health, drug treatment programs if that's what's required. It's about job training in some instances. It's about trying to help them find a better job so that they can support themselves.
You mentioned Housing First. Part of the problem with getting Housing First going here is NIMBY, not in my backyard. I mean, there's a proposal to put something in Chinatown. You know, the Capitol has these two nice green lawns next to it. Should we use that space to build affordable housing structures and drug treatment centers? Would that be something you would welcome? I'm speaking somewhat facetiously.
I know you are, but you know, the one thing that the state has is lots of land. You know, we ought to be looking. This past session, I appropriated more to the Rental Housing Trust Fund. Right. We have committed to virtually double the amount of monies going into that trust fund. We made a significant impact in all of the housing programs. We've appropriated significantly more money. And I think that it starts with the state. You know, we need to provide more rental housing. You know, I've spoken with Senator Chun Oakland about the concept of micro-housing, about, you know, trying to recognize that this transition housing doesn't have to look like what you and I live in today. It really is about a shared facility. It's really about an emergency shelter that can be much lower cost, but can provide a platform that if we provide the supporting services, can get a family out of being homeless.
One of the unsung stories, I think, of the legislature was increasing the money for the Rental Housing Trust Fund.
Absolutely. That's another priority. You know, in spite of the fact that the governor's budget was $1 billion over budget, you know, it's about having priorities. And we believe this housing shortage is a priority, and we put our money where our mouth is.
Let's get to differences between you and the governor, speaking of the budget. We have just 15 minutes left, and the broadcast on Alelo, and then we're going to go to question and answers with the cameras off afterwards for a little bit. The governor not long ago was playing up the $844 million budget surplus, for which he took some credit. You and Sylvia Luke said that's not quite the right picture. Does the governor deserve some credit? I mean, think about this. Unemployment is as low as it's been in 7 or 8 years, 4.4%. Construction is booming, whether you like what's happening at Kakaako or not. Tourism, while it's dipped a little bit, is still fairly strong. Most people would say with that kind of 4 years, you deserve another 4 years. Does he deserve credit for the economic situation and balancing the state's budget?
Well, let me just say this. I believe the people of Hawaii will determine whether he gets another 4 years. You know, and as I've gone around the state, people tell me that they want change, that they're not satisfied with what the current situation in the state is. Yes, he's the governor, and he does deserve some credit for what's happening. I believe the legislature deserves some credit. You know, I take extreme pride in the work that the legislature has done. You know, we decided to reject tax increases because we believe that it would hurt our economy more than it would help. we decided to cut budgets and set priorities. We set priority for housing, we set priority for public schools, we set priority for university. If you look at the budgets the last 4 years, I believe that we have made conscious decisions about what things are important to our communities and funded those, and we've rejected a lot of requests. As I've said, I've cut $1 billion from the governor's request because I wanted a budget that was sustainable, that our community could support, and most importantly was reflective of the community priorities going forward.
Was the governor's proposed budgets over these last 4 years irresponsible? He's got a pretty good budget and finance guy in Calvert Young, and I know that you work with him closely, you and Sylvia Luke. The governor himself says, sure, I'm not going to get everything I want, but that's what we do. I propose the budget, then the Senate takes it, then the House, and then we come up with a compromise situation. Does he deserve some credit for that?
Well, he is the governor and he does execute, so I do believe that there is lots of accolades that can be applied to different people. But let's be very clear that my approach to the fiscal finances of the state of Hawaii would be very different from the governor's. I believe that the budget as adopted by the legislature is more reflective of the legislators and my personal priorities rather than the governor. We can look at many instances of requests that he's made that we believe was just not sustainable. And I do believe that our budget that is implemented. Remember, the current budget as it exists today is an operating deficit because of the reduction in revenues that we have. So this fiscal year, we will be expending $200 million more than we take in taxes. So that $844 million surplus will shrink because we can't sustain that levels. And next year, even if we assume a 5% increase in revenues, we'll still have an operating deficit of more than $200 million.
The average person, probably including me, starts hearing 5% and revenues and just gets kind of dizzy because they can't quite grasp, well, that sounds okay, great, you're doing a great job, but they want to be given something easy to digest. And do you think you have that ability to, I mentioned this earlier, to really inspire? I mean, say what you will about the governor, he has a strong, vibrant presence. He has a very pronounced speaking style. He can speak quite proudly about his accomplishments and quite critically about the opposition. You're a different personality. You're more quiet, how are you guys going to compete side by side when voters see you? Can you combat that with the kind of personality that you have?
Well, Chad, let me just put it this way. I've accepted every single opportunity to debate the governor, and he has declined.
Boy, it's going to be... KITV and Civil Beat are willing to hold one of those debates, Governor, should you change your mind and accept Senator Ige's request. Let's move on to Turtle Bay. The deal was signed this week. I don't believe you were at the bill signing ceremony up there.
I wasn't invited.
Okay.
But I'm okay with that.
Okay. David, Duke Iona last week announced, this past week announced that he's running for governor. And one of the things he said during the Republican convention last weekend was that the governor was irresponsible for proposing the Turtle Bay deal without a way to finance it. Do you think that's a reasonable thing to say? And do you deserve the credit for financing the Turtle Bay deal?
Well, I do take pride in the fact that I was able to find a solution that I could convince my colleagues in the legislature to fund. I have been working on Turtle Bay preservation for a number of years. I work very closely with Senator He. I understand how important it is to our community to look at and look for these opportunities to acquire and save these important assets for the entire community to benefit. So I have been very supportive in doing that. The governor's report to the legislature about the Turtle Bay acquisition said that it was a huge acquisition, that the cost would be significant, and the expectation was that we could fund it over several years. If you look at the report by the department, that's exactly what they said, and that's exactly how we had approached it. Of course, 5 days before the end, we heard nothing about the deal, so we assumed that no funds were available. The other thing that I think that's very important for the public to know is that the governor's budget was out of balance. You know, the revenue picture changed. We lost $1 billion over the financing window. And so even though it was in his budget didn't balance. So it really was about what is the best way for us to save the pristine land from Kawela Bay to Kahuku Point. We could not do it with general obligation bonds. Do we fund the School of Pharmacy or not? You know, we could have cut the School of Pharmacy out, but our community said it was important. You know, what about all the school projects that are in the budget? Should we take them out? $40 million builds more than one elementary school. It's about 1.5. It funds about a middle school, and there are so many needs in terms of public school facilities. Same like repair and maintenance of our hospitals. You know, we funded this year $20 million to repair significant investments in the public hospital system. Should we have cut that out in order to save Turtle Bay? I said no, and there was a better way to do it. By refinancing the convention center bonds, we essentially, like all of you, when you refinance your home mortgage, would see a savings to your pocketbook. And we could identify and estimate that we would save about $10 million by refinancing debt service. And why not do it? Because the interest rates that the bonds were issued at were high. And why not take that savings and plunk it into revenue bonds so we could acquire Turtle Bay Hilton, Turtle Bay, and preserve Kawela Bay? So I made the proposal, the legislature agreed, and we were able to save Turtle Bay.
Speaking of money, we have just about 7 minutes left. I mentioned money. We're talking about money. The governor has a lot of it in his war chest, at least several $1 million, and that was the last report, was in January. He's been holding a lot of fundraisers. We won't know until July how much he has, but the last time I checked, he had a 10-to-1 advantage over you in fundraising. He's running ads on TV. He's traveling around the state. How are you going to get your message out? How's your fundraising status?
I am confident that we will raise the money that we need to tell our story. We are running a non-traditional campaign. You know, I trust and believe that the people of Hawaii will make the right choice for governor. And I believe that they will choose me to be their next governor. It really is more than who can raise the most money. It really is, we've been working very hard. We've been having community meetings, coffee hours, stew and rices across the state, so I have an opportunity. I believe that if I can speak with somebody, I can convince them that I'm the best choice for governor, and we are working very hard to do that in each and every community. We were out at the hygienic store 2 nights ago. I was on Kala Hill last night. We were in Poipu the week before that. You know, I am confident that the people of Hawaii will choose the best governor on August 9th.
History is not on your side. We haven't kicked a governor out of office since 1962. That was Bill Quinn, a Republican, and that was Jack Burns, a Democrat. It wasn't even in the primary. To unseat a sitting governor of the same party is highly unusual. How are you going to do this?
You know, it really is person to person. Okay. It really is all of the people of Hawaii really taking this seriously. This election is about the future of Hawaii. You need to ask the question, are you satisfied with the direction we're taking? You know, and as I've gone to meet and talk with people, the answer I get back is no. The answer I get back is that state government is not working for them. State government has stopped listening. You know, why isn't the state doing what the people want instead of what the special interests want? That's what I hear each and every day as I go around campaigning. And I'm confident that people of Hawaii will make the right choice on August 9th.
Let's say you get past the governor on August 9th and you're the nominee. In all likelihood, you're facing Republican Duke Iona, Mufi Hanneman, the independent candidate. These are the same people the governor defeated 4 years ago, but separately, the primary and the general. You're looking at potentially a race where 35% of the vote could get someone elected governor. There's an argument to be made, is there not, that the current guy on the job is the best person to stick with that. He beat them 4 years ago. Are you already looking ahead to?
I am not looking ahead. You know, August 9th is, You know, August 9th, people of Hawaii will choose the next governor. I'm convinced whoever wins the Democratic primary will be the next governor of the state of Hawaii.
You don't think Mufi Hanneman or Duke
There's
Iona?
no doubt in my mind. I mean, I've gone and I've talked with lots of people in our community.
What about the opposition to same-sex marriage? There seems to be a groundswell. Remember, they weren't allowed to vote on the issue back in the special session. Are you at all concerned that there may be a movement there that will elect Republicans or Mufi Hanneman? Both Iona and Mufi are against same-sex marriage.
I look forward to any movement by the people of Hawaii to get engaged in the election process. You know, we need to do better in getting people to take the election seriously. This election is about the future of Hawaii. I would love it for there to be 50 different community groups that really believe that this election is important, get out and challenge candidates on their views so that we can really understand what they stand for, so that we as a people can make the decision about who can best serve as governor for the next 4 years.
Okay, we're almost out of time here, but I got to ask you this question. We have an unusual twist in that we have a contested lieutenant governor's race. Senator Clayton He, one of your colleagues, running against Shan Tsutsui, one of your former colleagues. You could potentially be paired with someone like Clayton He, a very strong personality who probably is not always comfortable being in the number 2 position, if you will. Is that a little awkward that you may be actually running with someone that you didn't pick, and that and it could be Shan Tsutsui who's still on the job?
You know, I have worked very well with both of them. You know, Senator He, as you know, is chairman of the Judiciary Committee. Anybody who's lobbied at the legislature or been involved with the legislative process is, you know, Judiciary and the Consumer Protection and the Ways and Means Committee are really the committees that need to work together to ensure that the entire legislative package makes sense. And I have a very good working relationship with Clayton. You know, I work with him on Turtle Bay. I worked with him on several issues, and I feel very comfortable if he were to be the people's choice for lieutenant governor. You know, Shan Tsutsui and I worked together. Shan was very much responsible for me taking this position as Ways and Means Chair. We worked very well together. I do understand, and he understands that, you know, for anybody who's been at the state capitol, you know, Senate President needs to work very closely with the Ways and Means Chair in order for the Senate to work. And I am very much proud of the fact that the Senate for the last 4 years has worked very well. And I've had the privilege of serving as Ways and Means Chair during that time. So I feel very comfortable working with either of them, whoever should be selected by the people.
Okay, my last question for you. The Democratic Party convention is this week at the Sheraton. You didn't have a speaking role. You fought for that. You do now have a speaking role, although I notice it's on a different day than the governor. What are you going to tell those delegates to persuade them to vote for you?
You know, I just wanted to thank the Democratic Party and for the many, many supporters in the party who rose up and spoke and insisted that I have the opportunity to address the convention. You know, I feel honored to be able to be on the podium and have my time. You know, it really is about reflecting about what's important as Democrats, about the progress we've made on a lot of different fronts. You know, I am proud to be a Democrat. I never would have considered to be part of any other party. You know, we have a proud legacy. We'll be talking about that. We've made significant progress in many different areas, and so we'll be talking about that as well.
Well, we've run out of time. Senator David Ige, I want to thank you very much for joining. Yes, round of applause. I'm Chad Blair with Honolulu Civil Beat. A big mahalo to Aloha for running this program. It will be rebroadcast. Take care, aloha, and drive safely tonight. Thank you, Senator.